Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network. kingofpodcasts.com.
Superman is out this weekend, and marketing and promotion was doing so good until James Gunn opened his big mouth.
The King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
And welcome to the Broadcasters Podcast. This is King of Podcasts here with you. The website is kingofpodcasts.com. Easy enough, right? So James Gunn, leading up to the debut of the 2025 incarnation of Superman, starring David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, and Nicholas Hoult. That's this weekend. I'll be watching the movie tomorrow night, Friday night, as I record this episode. I've already started seeing some good reviews about it from people that I would go ahead and follow. Nobody that I know locally, but just the buzz around it has been pretty well. I don't think anybody's really making too much of a stink of anything about it. At the moment, the Rotten Tomatoes score, as I look at it, 83% on the critics' side, tomato meter 95%. So it's good. That's promising. 95%. And from everything I've seen of the trailers for this movie, me being the avid moviegoer, going to the movie theater to watch movies every Friday night, I've seen the trailers for Superman for over a year. And every time I saw them, they were impressive. I thought who they picked for Superman has a good look to him. If you haven't played the whole story leading up to him becoming the Man of Steel, you know, now they got the dog in here, the dog getting crypto, they brought into the mix. A different reinterpretation of it. But again, the same story we've always known about for years, going back to the post-World War II character that was created. Now, with this, I have seen every incarnation of Superman, the George Reeves character, in the 50s. I've seen those episodes. I saw the cartoon when they had it, when it was Max Fleischer, I think it was, that had it. The Super Friends, I saw those when I was a kid. And then leading up to the Christopher Reeve 4-part series, I'm glad they never show the fourth one because I can't bear to watch that again. And then we get into Superman Returns with Brandon Routh, which was a throwaway. To me, it was a throwaway. I mean, Gene Hackman, I thought, was a great Lex. To me, Gene Hackman was a great Lex Luthor. Kevin Spacey was a very good Lex Luthor. I'll give that movie that. But I wasn't big about the rest of the whole thing. Like, Superman Returns was a bust to me. I just never got into that. It never felt right. Henry Cavill and the Man of Steel franchise, I was good with that. He looked the part. It was fine. The movies looked great. I was... You know, it was also, I guess, the one thing about the Justice League and the whole setup of that where everybody was really not happy with the whole setup of it. I mean, I get that. I like the first Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman. That was taking some long time to get somewhere. I wasn't big about Jesse Eisenberg being Lex Luthor. Not really. But I like the idea of what they did with this cast this time around. Because, you know, they didn't give us any dialogue. Very little at the very beginning on the very first trailer. And then seeing Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, that makes sense. I mean, it looks the part. And from what I've seen of other things that she's done, I never watched the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Never got into that. But I remember seeing her on, what was the show that was on WGN about the Manhattan Project? I forget the name of that now. That's where I remember seeing her first. And other things I've seen her as well. Actually, she was also in the Amateur with Rami Malek earlier this year. So David Corenswet, absolute unknown to me. I never seen him, but he looks the part. I mean, if you need to go ahead and look, make somebody look like the Christopher Reeve type, some of the trailers, some of the TikTok videos I've seen out there talking about the fact that the Clark Kent character that he portrays plays it like Christopher Reeve, where it's a much different voice. So a little bit of the campiness, the goofiness that we remember of the Christopher Reeve character, which, listen, I mean, no matter what, you can give me the first two Superman movies in 78 and 80, 81. I'll take those. I could still watch Superman going after the thief in the Phantom Zone I mean, I can still, and sometimes I still hear myself saying Superman like Sarah Douglas in the second movie, Superman. I can still remember the fight scene up in the air where they're getting thrown, like, what is it, Superman getting thrown into the Coca-Cola sign and all that kind of stuff. Like, there is just so much there. And of course, the first one was, to me, but like I said, the first two really enjoyed. The third one, a bit goofy. You know, they went some routes with it, but still watchable. Still watchable. But there's something about how those movies were set up. And then on top of that, when you had that John Williams score, which the Superman theme from John Williams gives me goosebumps. There's not many musical scores that will give me goosebumps like that, but that gives me goosebumps every time. The one other thing that really does give me an emotional feel is Round Ball Rock by John Tesh of the NBA on NBC. It just does. And also any football score, like for NFL, the Fox theme, the CBS theme, the Sunday Night Football theme, Monday Night Football theme, absolutely. Give me that kind of feel to it. So overall, if I had to go and choose Superman, which ones I like the best, of course, Reeve is first. Cavill. I would put, George Reeves I would put third, and then I'll put Random Routh fourth. That's just what I would really do that. And if I had to go include the animated, I would include the Super Friends character probably third behind Cavill. Just saying. But to the original point of why I'm on here today, look, I am not going the route of some politics that other shows are going to use this out here, because there's a lot of political content out there that wanted to go ahead and talk about Superman just because they want to have something to go ahead and use as a divining rod. It's like, let's just go something to go ahead and attack. But I want to focus only on James Gunn and the fact that, was it the right time after everything was going so well for the debut of this movie? Listen, you don't want to put it on July 4th? Fine. You got Jurassic Park that came out. It kicked ass, made a lot of money. Great. You wanted to go and wait till after F1? Fine. After Mission Impossible? Fine. So we're here in middle of July, July 11th, ready to go. James Gunn directing, gave us Guardians of the Galaxy, him and Peter Safran, to lead the DC universe, to get it forward because of everything else that was going wrong, right? When they had movies like Blue Beetle and The Flash, that just panned. And then the last Wonder Woman, also not that good. Passable, but that's it. We know that they're going to go ahead and retool the DC universe, and that's what they were going to do. And it starts with this Superman. And James Gunn, to the credit, listen, I watched all the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and I liked them all. Like, I was surprised the last Guardians of the Galaxy I got through and enjoyed because, you know, you've seen everything you wanted to see before, but then you give me the Rocket story, and I'm like, okay, you gave me something there. So I know James Gunn is more than capable to go ahead and put a good movie here together for a superhero movie. So let's see what happens. So I was all ready to go and watch. But the one thing that irked me is that we already know that in the world of movies right now, anything that's considered woke or anything that's considered, you know, virtue signaling or anything, all those kind of things. Like, I mean, I've watched a lot of movies that have been considered woke, and that's fine. I don't care. Like, if I had to go and worry about whatever is considered woke or any kind of things that are, you know, that don't really vibe with me, then I would be, you know, watching Angel Studios movies all the time. I'm not doing that. I just want movies that, when I've watched Superman, you know, you want to reinterpret it, you want to go and bring it back again. Okay, fine. You know the story. You want to do it today with new CGI, new effects? Fine. You want to give it a nice new spin to it? Go ahead. Look, we've had others that try to do the same thing. And, you know, it's hard to live up to Richard Donner and what he did with Superman in the late 70s to start that franchise off. Should have never made the fourth one. Just saying. Quest for Peace, that's a throwaway. That's like Godfather 3 bad. To the point where I remember Margot Hemingway being in it, and I remember that horrible villain they put on to go up against Superman, and Gene Hackman was there with Lex Luthor to go ahead and use this particular beast. It's like, no, it did not work. And what was it? It was like some kind of like Greenpeace Earth kind of shtick, something like that in 1986. I mean, it didn't work. And nobody talks about it either. So let's just make that point clear too. James Gunn decided to go and open his mouth. And we've been hearing stories about how there were certain movies that have come out in the last year or so that, you know, the movies that are coming out to the movie theaters, there's a bit of a change into what hasn't been working. And so the things need to be changed up. Like, we're not going to get so many Madam Webs anymore. Oh, like the women's empowerment kind of thing. Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle. We're not going to get that anymore. We're not going to get, you know, it's like those kind of movies we don't need. And I think of in the Marvel route, like, okay, Captain Marvel. No, the Marvels. Oh my God. Or Eternals. Like, there's just certain movies that he did as part of this. It just does not work. And they were trying to do this whole, like, let's, you know, check all the boxes kind of thing. And like, it doesn't work. Even the Disney stuff right now, they're making changes to some of the roles that are going because Bob Iger came back in. It's like, listen, this other stuff that you're doing right now on Disney Plus, or what are you doing? Like, in the movie theaters, we don't need it. Elio was supposed to be a different character. And then they stripped all the different areas of how the character was supposed to be queer. And now it's more of a boy character, a conventional boy. I could care less. But the thing is, the big movie studios, the big corporate media giants realize people are not going to that, man. They're not spending money on it. Superman in this current incarnation, there's no reason why this movie should not make at least $400 or $500 million domestic. No reason why this movie couldn't possibly get to about $600 to $800 million worldwide. And if it does really well, close to $1 billion. It should be. This is on almost everybody. And remember, you're talking about like all around the world. Everybody knows who Superman is. They know the story of different ages, different generations all across. We've all been familiar with it. So the week before the debut, July 4th, James Gunn speaks for the Times of London. And the Times, listen, I bet those guys, the journalists over there, decided to go and get him in a gotcha because he's over there for the premiere of the movie. And right before the premiere of the movie, he goes on and speaks with these journalists who decided to go and put him in a spot. And I don't know if James Gunn was actually being aware that he was going to get himself so comfortable in the interview to sit down for this long form interview and then get caught in a quote, which was, of course, these leeches are going to go after the first thing that happens, and they're going to put James Gunn's quote in there right off the bat. Some people will take offense at my new Superman. So they got him to go in that route to talk about it. So this writer, Jonathan Dean, speaks with James Gunn before the premiere. They refer to James Gunn as the franchise overlord of the DC Comics universe, the DCEU, charged with creating an elaborate, interconnecting world for DC Comics to challenge the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, by the way, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's at its low point right now. I know they're going to start another setup to go Avengers all out, but like what they started with Thunderbolts did not work. I didn't have a problem with Thunderbolts. I was fine, but you know what? Nobody went to watch it. Nobody was really into it. And it wasn't that bad at all. You know, it definitely wasn't that bad. So we know the mainstays of the DC universe, Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. Gunn's a director who knows we have superhero fatigue, wants to wake us up again. And here's what James Gunn said. There are 3 things I don't ever need to see again in a superhero movie. I don't need to see pearls in a back alley when Batman's parents are killed. I don't need to see the radioactive spider biting Spider-Man. And I don't need to see baby cow coming from Krypton and a little baby rocket. We've watched a million movies with characters who don't have their upbringing explained, like when we see Good Night and Good Luck. All that stuff. Okay, but then Superman, we see him fully formed and stripped for action. Works at the Daily Planet, dates Lois Lane. And the film starts with flinging a bloodied Superman to the ground after a struggle with the minions of Lex Luthor. The movie is 2 hours long, not 3. Well, that's a good thing. And Gunn says that my main goal was to make parents spend less on babysitters. And then he says, but I always try hard to cut away the fat, and I've never worked as hard on a film as I did on Superman. This is all good stuff right here. So far, we're doing just fine. So then Gunn talks about how his Superman doesn't go the way of the recent superhero films that have bombed at the box office. So he says, well, it's different to how it used to be. He says, up until Iron Man, the only superheroes that made money were Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, plus X-Men. Then the visual effects improved, and though people thought Iron Man was a C-tier superhero, but of the Marvel Universe. He was one of the most compelling characters. Like the look and the whole deal of him. They never really took time to go ahead and really work with him too much. But he looked cool as hell. But now you have to go and do, where those days are gone, it has to be, you make a movie that really grabs an audience. And so they say that one way to do that is with a 10-minute scene of just Clark and Lois talking about geopolitics and whether Superman should have stopped the war. Is exactly how to make a superhero movie to engage in adults. It's definitely the most unusual thing we put in the movie. It's a film for the age of endless discourse, with the difference being that people who disagree with each other here are willing to discuss and even perhaps learn. So then he goes on to say, yes, it's about politics, but on another level, it's about morality. Do you ever kill no matter what, which is what Superman believes, or do you have some balance as Lois believes? It's really about their relationship and the way different opinions on basic moral beliefs can tear two people apart. So the relationship, where they're going to go with it. Then he talks about a couple other things here. And then the reporter here talks about President Trump, the immigrant situation, and making the point that Superman clearly is a refugee from another place who came to the United States. So this writer says that before you say Superman has gone woke, it's all in Superman's lengthy history. So James Gunn says that Superman is the story of America, an immigrant that comes from other places and populated the country. But for me, it's mostly a story about basic human kindness as a value, and it's something we have lost. And then asked if he considered how differently the film might play in, say, New York or Kansas, where Kent grew up, he says it plays differently, Gunn says. But it's all about human kindness, and obviously there will be jerks out there who are just not kind and will take it as offensive just because it's about kindness, but screw them. All right. And the reason he goes, and this reporter asks about Gunn, is because Gunn and President Trump have had words with each other. I guess that's on Twitter. I'm not sure the whole thing was, but that shouldn't matter. You know, let's just get to back to the work of the movie. And so far, everything was saying before all this, and even when he talks about here, the politics here, about the fact that, okay, being from another place, it's where the question comes from the reporter. Okay, James Gunn's not going to be the one that decides, you know what, maybe we don't have to go into that route. We can use something like that. But of course, the question was asked the way it was asked. So Jonathan Dean put James Gunn in a spot so he can go ahead and get a little political, to go in and start talking about immigrant families and all that good stuff. Because as far as I know, I don't see where James Gunn in this particular interview was going that route. It's because the reporter decided to go ahead and pull this question out midway into the interview, a la Matt Lauer, just to go ahead and get something from James Gunn. Because one of the things I guarantee you that this Jonathan Dean had to do was like, all right, you're not going to do just a press junket there, Jonathan. You know, Times of London saying, well, no, you need to get something more out of him. We need to sell some papers. God forbid, where AI is going to go and just destroy us someday. So go get something from him. So he holds that immigrant situation question and uses Trump into the question as well, just to get into something. That's what he wanted to do. So this reporter, I blame him. He's the one that decided to go and go this route because he wants to go ahead and, make his publishers, his editor-in-chief happy. Right. So that's what he did. And James Gunn took the bait. And I'm sure he probably didn't even think about it because he was in a comfortable state talking about the movie. He talked about this interview is being crafted and is kind of following the order of what questions Jonathan Dean asked of James Gunn. Then I see where this reporter was going, goes into the initial set, and then the political party mentioned with Lois and Clark. Okay, that's fine. Again, where James Gunn said it right there, that's on his own accord, and I was okay. So hearing that, Jonathan Dean thinks, okay, I want to go ahead and then jump into this question after he talks about Crypto the dog. But we have a dog in the movie, right? James Gunn changed the subject, went talking about the dog, a nice, fun, happy thing. And then Jonathan Dean comes back to politics and drops in Trump, immigration, and James Gunn took the bait. He did. Understood why. I get it. Okay, we know what was going on there. And remember, James Gunn has his own past with certain things he has said that were very controversial. Disney who was employer at the time, fired him, and then there was pressure to bring him back. But then he left for DC, and that was it. It's like that was all I was doing. But that's the part where, like, hey man, you've already gotten yourself some backlash before on comments that you make, so just tread lightly, man. I mean, this is where you just come in and just, like, if somebody is going to have him go there and do this interview, just keep an eye on what's going on here and, find the best way to answer it without, putting foot in mouth. But, and honestly, I'll tell you, I don't think he took the question and he put himself out there too badly. I think that's the other part he didn't go too crazy on. That's okay. And then he goes on to talk about that this Superman does seem to come at a particular time when people are feeling a loss of hope in other people's goodness. I'm telling a story about a guy who's uniquely good and feels needed because there is a meanness that has emerged due to cultural figures being mean online. He goes on to say, and he's laughing about this, saying that, and I include myself in this, it is ad infinitum, millions of people having tantrums online. How are we supposed to get anywhere as a culture? We don't know what's real, and that is a really difficult place for the human brain to breathe. If I could press a button to make the internet disappear, I'd consider it. And no, I don't make films to change the world, but if a few people could just be a bit nicer after this, it would make me happy. I like that answer. I like what he's saying. I agree with it. So I think he is trying to go and turn it back around and make it where this movie's constructive. Yeah, listen, the way they set up with the movie itself and certain things that Superman has to do, get involved into a war, I get it. So it's part of the storyline. They brought it in here. Understood. No problem there. Again, I think this Jonathan Dean caused James Gunn to say something that was going to get traction in the States because of the political climate we got, this divide that we still have, okay? And, the cultural zeitgeist is changing. That just, it's not where we don't have, freedom of speech. It's just that we're realizing there were just certain things that were going on with movies that if you decide to go and put the kumbaya stuff, I call it, right? Check all the boxes kind of stuff. It's not a matter of me saying, okay, this should be in the movie, it should not be in the movie. No, I'm just saying, if people don't want it in the movie, the dollars that are going to spend on the movie is going to tell you everything. And that's what happens. Snow White for Disney, look at it. It took a hit because Rachel Zegler said a lot of stuff out there, opened her mouth, and that movie panned. And it was going to take a big hit anyway because she said some certain things when it comes to women and the creepiness of Prince Charming and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? You're going to go that route. The dwarfs are not even dwarfs. It's like, all right, you're not even using real dwarfs. You're using CGI. Like, all that right there just got people pretty upset. And that didn't do well for things. I mean, you got to think about, like, what movies are you going to have that are going to make money? They don't have certain things like that. The kumbaya kind of stuff doesn't get in there. And I mean, I think about all the movies we had. And look, there's certain movies that might have certain components that you could talk about, like, but there's movies that had that all the time. And like this year, I've had more than my share of movies that had a little bit of something that was like, all right, no, whatever. But I didn't care. Because I'm still suspending disbelief because, like, it's not like all these movies are based on reality, but there is a message, sometimes of a narrative they want to get put out there, but I'm not worried about that. I'm just enjoying a time at the movies. That's what I want to do. But he's talking about internet and social media. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And he's old enough to remember what it was like not having to deal with it. He also goes on to say that I say how in our divided world, if Superman did actually turn up, we would argue against him, shun him, call him a fraud, and kick him out. And that's the thing, too. You're going to have this movie come out, a new generation of people watching it, and are they going to latch on? Because the other Supermans we had have been a while. I mean, I'll put it like this. The Henry Cavill Man of Steel, it was like a safe bet. They didn't really try to chance it. They didn't do anything too extreme to it. Personally, I don't think they did at all. It's just, it was like by the numbers Superman, in my opinion, for a current day. But that's all it was. And I do think that James Gunn did try to go ahead and really put the great effort to go ahead and make a really good Superman movie. And I think he's probably did a good job. And I heard people talking about that it was. So great. I can't wait to watch it tomorrow. He goes on to say now that When I was growing up, I thought of the big three. Superman was the archetypal American superhero. That's what Jonathan Dean says, but then Gunn disagrees. His market research showed that people around the globe think of him more as far more international. Yet he has the homespun Americanisms from his boyhood in Kansas, but he remains an alien just like his creators felt like they were almost a century ago. Quote, he is a hero for the world. The question is, how will the world take him? Well, I think it is something to be said about him having an international appeal. That I agree with. But he has... But it's a more of something where there's an American kind of spirit with the Superman character. That's what it comes down to. But, it's open to interpretation. But what James Gunn said was enough to get people all stirred up. He goes on to NPR and talks about that, Superman wants to be us. We all want to be Superman. The other thing to talk about with the Superman movie is that this Superman is very physically vulnerable. The movie starts right off the bat with Superman losing a battle. He looks really beat up. And it's not one of those things where kryptonite is weakening him. He gets into a fight that he can't win. And some Superman fans are going to be like, what? Why is Superman losing a fight? So the idea is where Superman is a superhero, but you want to find out that people have very distinct ideas of what these characters are supposed to be. A lot of people want Superman to be able to punch a planet and break it in half. Makes him being in a world with other superheroes kind of irrelevant because he's so powerful. I didn't want a Superman that can make the Flash, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Green Lantern irrelevant. He's often portrayed as a god. I don't think our Superman is a god. We want all to be Superman. We want to fly. We want to shoot beams out of our eyes, have super strength to be able to beat up anybody who comes at us. We go into the movie wanting to be Superman, but at the end of the movie, we realize that Superman wants to be us. He wants to be a human being. That's his biggest desire. A big difference from the Richard Donner one because the Superman character wanted to be human because of his love for Lois Lane. Now, I don't know if that translates into this newer one, but we'll find out. There's no spoilers, by the way. Like I said, I have not watched this movie yet, but I will be watching it tomorrow night as I get to do this. Around this time tomorrow, I will be in the theater, and after 30 minutes of promos, because the movie starts at 10:15, as I'm recording right now, almost 11:20, the movie will probably start. And 24 hours from now, I'll be in the theater watching. So there you go. But after that Times of London interview, he has been staying back from all that political talk. I noticed that too. He has been talking about certain things when it comes to, what Superman embodies in this particular film. But I noticed that after that Times of London feature, everything I've tried to see so far, James Gunn has shied away. So the last week, he's kind of kept himself a distance from that. Here he is on the red carpet at the premiere, and Variety decided to go and ask him about it.
You said it's an immigrant story. It's a political movie. MAGA today is going nuts. What do you have to say to MAGA?
I don't have anything. I think this movie's for everybody. I don't have anything to say to anybody. I'm not here to judge people, I think this is a movie about kindness, and I think that's something everyone can relate to.
That's it. So he knew that was coming, and another reporter decided to go the same route. Let's get James Gunn on the record one more time. But what the reporters care about are selling their papers. Do they care about promoting Superman? Probably not. They're not making a dime off of it. So they wanted to go that route and see if they can get something for themselves. So let's get James Gunn, who's a bit of a lightning rod and has said some things that have been controversial. Let's get him on the record and say something else. So after Times of London, on the red carpet, let's get James Gunn one more time. He didn't take the bait. But like I said, enough people were out there to start talking about it. And, like the media would do anyway, of course they're going to go ahead and go dive into that. They're going to go into that angle. Of all places, they go after Dean Cain, who plays Superman in The Adventures of Lois Superman. I never watched that series. Was never interested in it. And so Dean Cain says James Gunn made a mistake calling Superman an immigrant. It's going to hurt the box office. Well, he should have not taken the bait of that particular. He shouldn't have taken that bait, So the backlash is there. I'm not part of the backlash. I heard about it. It's not. I bought my tickets a month ago. nothing's changing my mind from going away from not watching that movie. I'm going to go. I'm there. I'm all in for it. And that's all I'm going to say about that part from there. Now, as I said, there have been good things to be said about the movie, and I've seen good reviews. And again, Rotten Tomatoes has a good score. As I'm looking once again, 95%, hey, it's fresh, pretty much. So go for it. I'm going for it to go see it. I look forward to it. And also, I mean, yeah, okay, I'm fine with the fact you're going to make him more vulnerable. Let's see how they're going to do with that. That's okay. I'm not surprised by that. The Evening Standard in the UK put a scathing review on Superman. And in this, they give it 2 out of 5 stars. They call Superman slight, nonsensical, and only sporadically funny. And without the Marvel system, James Gunn has fluffed this movie. He's the writer as well as the director, with presumably the level of control. So it's truly surprising how much of a mess it is, with lazy plotting, weak characterization, and little in the way of spectacular action. The script's only achievement is to strip away any notion of Superman's formerly timeless appeal and make the character seem inconsequential. When they refer to David Corenswet, they say that he's like the James Bond in Your Majesty's Secret Service, the George Lazenby character, the one-time James Bond character. Looks the part but brings little else. Not that this is his fault. He has very little to get his teeth into. Clark Kent is barely present, meaning there's no chance for Corenswet to explore an alter ego persona. And Superman is just a hell of a lot dimmer than we are used to. Merely a well-meaning jock type who doesn't want anyone to die, yet trite enough to also quite happily break off from a battle with a never explained floating jellyfish monster in the middle of the city to have a cup of coffee and a light squabble with Lois. They say he's just a dude who, doesn't want any of the dudes to get hurt. He's the Joey of Friends of Superheroes, which could have actually worked as an approach if this were given full throttle. Super bro, a stoner-ish college dropout who thinks he's punk rock and wants to scrap with aliens and kiss some chicks. The Superman is so far behind the machinations of everyone else that he almost feels irrelevant, they say. Well, they definitely did not like this here at all. Now, what does this mean for the DCEU universe? Because DCEU, according to James Gunn, he was asked about this by AGN, that each DCU movie from Superman to Clayface and Sergeant Rock to Supergirl will be totally different, just like how DC Comics does it. So when he talks about the influence of Superman, it's really important to me that every project has its own stamp on it. This movie is very different from the rated R movie we're making, a bloody horror movie with Clayface. Very different from the Sergeant Rock movie we're developing. Very different from Supergirl, which is a space fantasy. And he says what he loves about the DC Comics and the graphic novels is that they allowed the individual artists and writers to create their own projects, and they had each their own voice. So we're always going to get a different feel. We're not going to get the hokey-jokey Marvel stuff with the good action and all. I guess that kind of movie's not going to happen anymore. I think the days of how Marvel's done their movies previously, probably not going to be like that again. Who knows if they're going to do it now? But, hey, everything from the first Iron Man all the way to Avengers, Infinity War, I don't think we're going to get another run like that again. Another dynasty of movies like that. I don't know how they're going to do, but we'll figure it out. Now, there is a telling sign about what this DC universe and what movies they're going to be putting out coming up in the next couple of years, what it means about Hollywood as a whole. Let's move on to a couple other stories that are coming up now that I want to go and bring up before we go wrap things up. JoBlo.com talks about how to fix Hollywood. Movie theaters need to get with the program. And in this story, they say that Hollywood studios have been known over a decade. They've been competing for eyeballs with professional sports, video games, and streaming services. And entertainment experiences cut into theatrical revenue without asking customers to venture into a dark room with a bunch of strangers for 2 to 3 hours. Their 100-year-old method of the movie theater experience isn't going to succeed when the goalposts have moved, they said. They're saying that movie theaters don't understand their audience. So they pan the whole thing on Nicole Kidman sitting in the movie theater promoting the AMC theaters. And I never watched those ads, so I don't get to see those. Regal, we don't have anything like that. That to put those ads out there for moviegoers to reassure their purchase of the film. Meanwhile, they're not getting new people to come in or other people that wouldn't normally go to the movie theaters to get them in the movie theater itself. They're making the point that saving Hollywood is not about getting butts in seats, but delivering a curated visual event is no longer a unique experience for the viewing public. 2 generations of potential moviegoers are now comfortable sitting on their couch, playing superior video games, watching YouTube, TikTok. And the creator economy has definitely made a dent on what they're doing right now. Producers making the mistake to release films on streaming services under the banner, if you can't beat them, join them. Talking about how the fact that, when you're trying to go and compete against Netflix, they don't want to become Disney or Universal or Sony. They just want to be like Amazon, where you just visit their site regularly, knowing there must be something good there, if only the algorithm will unearth it. So they say that Hollywood falls back on doing what it does best, upping the spectacle. Come back to the cinema. You can experience firsthand what it means to drive a F1 race car, witness the comical emotions of a teenage girl, or travel to Pandora, or cyberspace, or Caribbean in the 17th century, things like that. But the thing is that whatever movies you're going to put out there in the theaters, it would just be better off if streaming doesn't get the exclusive rights to them. I'll tell you, over the weekend, I didn't go see a movie because I wasn't going to watch Jurassic Park, and I didn't want to. I did watch Ballerina again. I wanted to watch that a second time, so I had last Friday night to go there and watch that, and I was fine. And then I saw Heads of State on Amazon Prime. Idris Elba, John Cena, Priyanka Chopra, Jonas. I thought it was a very good movie. $80 million of budget. I don't know why that movie shouldn't have gone out into the theaters, because I think it would have done really well. I think it would have done really well in the theaters. I mean, I don't know if people are going to go to see it, because there's just certain movies that at a certain budget, they're not going to go see. But I think there's something where, of the middle ground of movies that you have out there, there's a lot of like the foreign films, or there's a lot of independent films. If you would put it right in the front audience and give it a chance, obviously people will go see movies with an original feel to it. Okay, Sinners was a very good movie earlier this year, and people were all over it. The Amateur was a very good movie. I mean, there's movies that don't have to be the sequels or any other kind of feel to it, but they were very good. So I'm not sure what people were thinking about it, but I get it. $15, $16, $17, $20 for a RPX ticket over in a Miami movie theater, or what, $30, $40 for an IMAX ticket? Yeah, along with concession, that's pricey. I get that part. And not a lot of people are going to go buy into the subscription program I'm at. I mean, $26 is a little bit up there, but I make the most of it. And I also have the time to go and do that. And not so much everybody else will do the same thing, but that's okay. Speaking of streaming, we brought up the fact of Netflix and Prime Video and Disney Plus and all that. Oh, HBO Max, we can call it HBO Max again. Aha. That started today. A couple things you should know about. There was a story we talked about a while back about the FTC looking to go and do a change of rules called click to cancel, where businesses would have made it easy to cancel subscriptions as it is to sign up. But an appeals court has now struck the measure down. So that was originally a plan that was going to be done, and they took it away. It was just going to get rid of deceptive subscription practices. And all initiated from where there was an agency that sued Amazon, FTC sued Amazon, right, for duping customers for signing up for the Prime service and then impeding them from canceling their enrollment. By the way, I just had to get my Prime subscription renewed, $139, but I use it a lot. Don't get me wrong. But right now, nothing's going to happen. Like, you can find a way to go and cancel your subscription, but you have to go through a couple of chutes and ladders to get to that point. From streaming, you go to cable. So now cable has more cable channels that are going to be put aside in different companies or whatnot, or going to be put up for sale. It's very weird because what is it? Like the week before the MTV Video Music Awards, MTV's going to go back to being a music channel for a week. I can't wait for that. They're going to make it MTV as it originally was, with VJs, the whole nine, for a week. I can imagine how well that really plays out if they decide to go and do it. Like that, even just if it's just an event for just a week, that's pretty cool. To just check back in on that, I think it'll be awesome. Because I don't watch the MTV channels that are the music channels because they're all in standard def. I don't have them in high def. I don't think they even offer them in high def. So to go back to MTV to watch it on high def, I'll finally go back to that channel. I haven't been there in years. I mean, Ridiculousness was pretty cool for a while, but I'm not watching that over and over. And what are the 80 seasons in? No, I'm not watching that. Lifetime, A&E, and the History channels are now considerably going up for sale. So we're going to know that Comcast is getting rid of most of their cable TV channels. Warner Bros. Discovery, we talk about how those cable TV channels are all being put aside in their own separate companies. So now there's a bank that's been hired to shop the properties according to people familiar with the companies. Just like that. And who knows what they're going to be turned into and what will happen to that. But then they can also be put where a private equity firm could come in that might pick up these channels, all these different cable channels. And then what will that be? What happens, it'll be like radio, where less creativity is brought in, less infrastructure, less effort, just milk as much money as you can from it. That's what they're going to do, pretty much. So I want to bring up one radio story and a couple AI stories to wrap things up. A story from Ross on radio, Sean Ross, at radioinside.com, talking about how does radio need more artists to overplay? So in country music, you have Morgan Wallen, who has a lot of songs on the charts right now after his new album, which had 37 songs on it. And he asked the question about, does radio need more artists to overplay? Does having a Morgan Wallen, Sabrina Carpenter, or Kendrick Lamar song every 20 minutes, depending on your format, convey the excitement of a hot artist, or merely exposing the lack of other hot artists? So he talked to one radio station in San Jose, California, a country station that has Morgan Wallen and three of his big songs being played a lot. And the program director there at K-Bay in San Jose says that country radio has not done enough to capitalize on the event value of his new album. On the pop radio side, the hit radio side, researcher Matt Bailey talked about in his weekly hit moment to report that one of the voices who thinks that radio should be moving hits to the system faster is him. He says that given the softness at the top of the charts, it's sometimes surprising that these songs still need to climb the charts symmetrically. So, talk about how Somber, who has some pretty good songs out there, put out Undressed and Love Me More, and also Back to Friends, to get those songs out there more, because right now he's an up-and-coming artist, he's viral, and he's got some good songs out there, and they're not getting played on radio yet. I don't know, it's that it's a ceiling that's in there. There's just certain people that are not allowed to go ahead and play ball with radio, which is a major mistake. And what Bailey does right now, he's trying to help program directors differentiate between streaming phenomena and radio hits. And that's the part where these program directors or these regional music directors, they're not willing to go ahead and take a chance on songs that are doing very well on streaming and try to make them radio hits, because they have to be absolutely positively bona fide hits before anything else. So there's only certain artists they're going to do that with. And then Ross also talks about that radio overindulges an artist and gives you the sense that it doesn't have anyone else to play. So when you had Top 40 Music last year, a lot of different artists that I can play with Sabrina Carpenter, Billie Eilish, Chappell Roan, all with their albums coming out. Top 40 did the right thing by making a first day event of Benson Boone's American Heart. But, his record is not going to get that much play, because obviously, besides Beautiful Things, some of the songs he's already put out there, they're not getting that much traction. Sabrina Carpenter will have Man's Best Friend coming up. By the way, I was thinking about this, and I told this to Luke Pate the other day after I talked to him on the radio at WPHT in Philadelphia, and I talked about the movie stuff. Because after the fact, I actually brought up the question. I said, because we brought up Sabrina Carpenter. I forgot how that came up. But I was curious what listeners would think about this. Years ago, we used to have the argument about, which woman would you prefer to be with? It's always like the choice of a blonde or a brunette. So, in the 50s, you could have said, was it Marilyn Monroe or her original persona as Norma Jean? And then in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we all watched Gilligan's Island. So would you prefer Ginger or Marianne? So I think you can kind of play that up once again. Do you want Sabrina or Tate? Will you prefer? Are you more of the Sabrina Carpenter type, the blonde bombshell, or are you more of the brunette type? Just a different look to her with Tate McRae. And that's a very hard question to ask. Like that's a kind of a hard choice to make, personally. I like both of them very much. So I thought Sean Ross put a nice little point around there about radio and the fact that they're not willing to give chances to other artists. And the other thing that comes into play, which I haven't talked about much anyway, but I've watched a lot of videos from Kristen Robinson, who writes for Billboard, especially about AI and certain areas of music, because we're getting a lot of stories about certain AI-generated artists going on Spotify and other places and getting 1 million followers. And songs getting put up there, just what you're getting on streaming, you don't know if it's going to be a human artist or not. Some people are going to get deceived by that. And that there are certain songs that go streaming that, you look at the charts right now for Spotify and or Apple Music, and you see that there's not much of a change in the top of the charts in general because we're not there at all. And that's a big problem we have right now. Looking at the top 10 right now in music, which radio is not going to have the same kind of feel to it, but, hey, it's what it is. Looking at the difference right now of the charts currently, it's quite off at the moment when it comes to what MediaBase is putting out there as the top 40, which is what radio is kind of following along with right now, and what is on the Spotify charts, which I always follow. So in your top 10, 10-1, Don't Say You Love Me from Jin, one of the former BTS members, at number 10. Love Me Not Raven Lene at 9. La Plena, W Sound Beal, Ovi on the drums, 8. Your Boy from the K-Pop Demon soundtrack at 7. Birds of a Feather at 6, Billie Eilish. Down with a Smile, Lady Gaga, Bruno Mars at 5. Golden from the K-Pop Demon Hunters cast. This is, by the way, the week of July 3rd, so the new chart hasn't come in yet. Manchild, number 3. Sabrina Carpenter, Back to Friends, Somber, number 2. Ordinary, Alex Warren, number 1. And he's been sitting up there at number 1 for a while, much like the chart in top 40. So in the top 40 chart, Alex Warren is number 1, which is consistent with Spotify and Apple Music, I'm pretty sure. Dochi Anxiety is 2. Benson Boom, Sorry I'm Here for Someone Else, 3. Rivalini and Lovina is 4. Ariana Grande, Twilight Zone is 5. Manchild, Sabrina Carpenter is 6. Somber Undress is 7. Azizam, Ed Sheeran, 8. SZA, 30 for 30, featuring Kendrick Lamar, 9. Drake, Nokia, 10. There are some songs in there that shouldn't be in there right now. Should be recurring. But even in the stagnation of the charts, which we can go back and talk about it again another day, it's the same thing as always, where we're not getting new music out there. I don't know what the record labels are just not doing anything about it. If we needed to see a change of how music gets promoted, something's got to happen, because this is really sad, where at the end of the year, there are going to be a lot of songs from 2024. They're going to be at the top of the charts. They're going to be in the year-end list, making it again on the charts because there's nothing else. Why Bar Song or Lose Control or Beautiful Things are still charting today? There's something wrong there. Those songs should not be in the current rotation in streaming and radio altogether. They shouldn't be. Anyways. Now, I missed this interview last month with The Wrap, and Barrett Media brings this up, that Bob Pittman, I like going and talking about him, right? He was talking about AI and says that with iHeartRadio, we remain committed to identifying opportunities across our organization to operate more efficiently and take advantage of new and evolving technologies like programmatic and AI, which are critical to delivering short-term results and long-term growth, even in periods of economic uncertainty. And they're using AI and technology to hit a target of $150 million in savings, net savings in 2025. Well, then the question is, where are those savings going to be coming from? And according to Barrett Media, they're saying, well, it's not going to be from software updates or studio repairs. A recent Axios article says that AI can wipe out half of all white-collar jobs. So radio jobs might be going away, quite a few of them. You don't know which ones are going to be, but we'll figure it out. You also talk about the fact of how since 2022, newspapers, Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal have lost 50% or more of their traffic. And ad revenue also declines as well. Publishers being so upset with Google that the tech giant recently launched a service called OfferWall to allow groups to experiment with other means of monetization beyond traffic-dependent options like ads. It's the equivalent of, they say here, of putting a Band-Aid on a wound that requires surgery. And also to talk about how AI tools are helping with content creation. I know that for myself because when I put out clips, or I even put out the YouTube editions of the program, like I get them out there really quick, and I got captions, and I got certain ways to get the programming all set together. It's just great stuff. And also writing the descriptions of the program, because I put a lot of input into what I put into what is going to be written in there. So like if you get a chance and you're reading on the website for the episodes, put it like this, okay? If you're at kingofpodcasts.com, if you click through the logo, you go right to the program. And also there's a menu right there where you can find Broadcasters Podcast. Click through, you'll see the full descriptions of what I have. And they're basically news stories. You can also read along with listening to the show every week. So they make a point that AI tools are already automating different parts of video production, broadcasts, adding segments based on trending topics, social media buzz, turning them around for audiograms or videograms for social media are all done instantly. And they make another point that says that anything that has the power to steal your audience's time, attention, and potentially your ad dollars is a competitive threat. So you got to either work with it, understand how it will disrupt what you're doing, and stay ahead of the game. That's one of the things you got to also think about as well. And speaking of AI, Perplexity, who has been getting a lot of flack for putting up other content, getting a lot of lawsuits. Well, now they have their own AI-powered web browser called Comet. And they're going to go up against Google search as the primary avenue people will use to find information online. Comet will be available to subscribers of Perplexity's $200 per month max plan, as well as a small group of invitees that are signed up to a wait list. And also you'll see Comet Assistant on that browser, a new AI agent from Perplexity living in the web browser, aiming to automate routine tasks. Well, I will say this about that. And I remember there's a gentleman I talked to from a Podcasters Row series, Eric Ritter. He's the digital neighbor he calls himself. And one of the areas we talked about was the fact that, and he's an SEO expert. One of the things we talked about specifically was the fact that with websites, or with search browsers, because of AI, the Geminis, the ChatGPTs of the world, they're eventually, in about 10 years, going to replace what Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge and all these other web browsers are going to be. Just wait for that. Come back next week for the Broadcasters Podcast, because content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.